My toxic boss tried to destroy my career, but her lies finally caught up to her. In the most unexpected way. I never thought I'd be the type of person to post on Reddit, but after everything that happened, I need to get this out of my system. And honestly, if even one person learns from my mistakes, it'll be worth it. So here it goes. My boss tried to sabotage my career, humiliate me, and eventually replace me with someone who didn't even know the difference between a spreadsheet and a stapler. And instead of fighting her directly, I let her dig her own grave. Every shovelful was made of her own lies. But in getting ahead of myself, let me start at the beginning. I'd been working at the company for 4 years, not long enough to be considered senior, but long enough to be the one everyone came to when something went wrong. Ask Alex, they'd say. Alex will know. It became a running joke in the office. Need a report. Ask Alex. Need a file. Ask Alex. Need someone to bail you out minutes before a meeting. Ask Alex. I didn't mind. Honestly, I loved it. I loved being the reliable one. Until she showed up. Her name was Claudia, our new department manager. She was one of those people who walked with the confidence of someone who thought they were starring in their own Netflix show. Tall heels, sharp voice, sharper smile, the type that made you feel complimented and insulted at the same time. The first week, she was overly friendly. Alex, you seem like the most competent person here, she'd say loudly so everyone could hear. Alex, you're such a lifesaver. Alex, I don't know what I'd do without you. Everyone knew. Everyone watched. Some even smirked, because her compliments felt wrong. Like she was studying me, testing me, figuring out where the cracks were. The switch happened during her second month. Suddenly, she began noticing mistakes in my work, mistakes that weren't there. She'd pull me aside and whisper, "We need to work on your attention to detail." Even though she was the one who had rewritten the report incorrectly. She'd send me emails at 11 p.m. asking for last-minute changes, and when I didn't answer immediately, she'd CC senior management the next morning with, "Unfortunately, Alex didn't respond." She'd take credit for my work, blame me for hers. The office noticed, of course. They always notice. But like every office everywhere, most people chose to stay silent and watch the show. No one wants to risk their paycheck for someone else's problems. I tried to deal with it quietly. I tried to breathe through it. I tried to tell myself she was just adjusting or stressed or insecure. But then came the betrayal. One Thursday morning, I walked into a meeting that wasn't on my calendar. Everyone was already seated, the director, HR, Claudia, and a person I had never seen before. Claudia smiled too widely. "Alex, great, glad you could join us. Take a seat." The stranger stood up, shook my hand, and said, "I'm the new operations coordinator. I heard I'll be working closely with you." Operations coordinator. My job title. I stared at Claudia, who pretended to be busy rearranging her notebook. The director cleared his throat. "We'll be restructuring some responsibilities. Claudia tells us you've been overwhelmed, so we brought in extra support." Overwhelmed. I had been doing the work of 3 people for months because she kept dumping tasks on me. The meeting lasted 20 minutes, but I barely heard a word. All I could think was, she was replacing me, and she did it without saying a single thing to me. Worse, she convinced them it was for my own good. At the end of the meeting, Claudia touched my arm lightly and whispered, "Don't worry, Alex. This will take a lot off your plate." I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just nodded. I walked out, and I swear I heard her laugh softly behind me. The next weeks were hell. The new coordinator, his name was Brent, kept coming to me for help because Claudia had thrown him into complex tasks he wasn't trained for. She would assign him work beyond his skill level, then blame me for not onboarding him properly. I was now responsible for training the guy who was clearly hired to replace me. And every time he messed up, Claudia used it as proof of my incompetence. One Friday evening, long after everyone had left, Brent sat at the desk opposite mine with his head in his hands. "I think she hates you," he said suddenly. I froze. "What?" "She talks about you nonstop," he whispered. "Says you're difficult, disorganized, even unstable." Unstable? That was when something inside me snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet, icy click. Something in me turned off and something else turned on. I stopped being afraid, because suddenly, I realized one simple truth. Claudia didn't want to replace me. Claudia wanted to destroy me. And if that was the game she wanted to play, fine. I would let her destroy herself instead. I didn't start with some grand plan. There was no movie moment montage of me plotting in the dark with dramatic music. It began quietly, with observation. Because people like Claudia always make the same mistake. They're so busy trying to control everyone else that they forget to look over their own shoulder. And in her case, she forgot to look at me. Over the next 2 weeks, instead of fighting her, I did something far more effective. I became exactly what she wanted everyone to think I was. A little slower, a little forgetful, a little overwhelmed. Not enough to get fired, just enough to make her confident she was winning. Whenever she sent me one of her midnight emails, I'd answer in the morning with a polite, "Just seeing this now." Whenever she threw impossible tasks at me, I'd ask her to clarify every tiny detail, forcing her to put things in writing. Every accusation she made, I'd calmly reply with a paper trail. Every unfair critique, I'd thank her and ask for documented guidance. HR loves that phrase. Managers hate it. But the real turning point came during what I now call the Tuesday disaster. It happened during a weekly operations call with senior management. The kind of meeting where everyone has exactly 8 minutes to present updates, and absolutely no patience for nonsense. Claudia insisted on presenting my department's quarterly projections herself. She kicked me out of the prep process entirely because she didn't trust my numbers. Fine by me. I had seen her fix data before, which meant she rearranged numbers until they looked pretty. Accuracy be damned. That morning, I sat 3 seats away from her as she confidently clicked through her slideshow. She spoke in her usual tone. Polished, sugary, rehearsed, and then it happened. Slide 7. A table of projected revenue. Except the numbers didn't add up. Like, at all. She had accidentally copied the wrong formulas across half the cells. Something a beginner Excel student would notice instantly. As soon as she switched to the slide, the room went silent in the way offices only go silent when something is very, very wrong. The director leaned forward. "Claudia, where did these numbers come from?" Her smile froze. "Oh, these are the updated projections," she said quickly. "Alex and I reviewed them yesterday." Every eye in the room turned to me. She had tried to pin it on me. Again, in front of every senior leader. I felt that same icy click inside me, the same one from weeks earlier. Except this time, it wasn't fear. It was clarity. I kept my voice calm, steady, almost bored. "Actually," I said, "I didn't prepare these numbers. I wasn't involved in this deck at all." Her head snapped toward me. Excuse me?" "Yes, you were. I sent you the draft." I opened my laptop, clicked twice, and rotated the screen toward the table. "Here's the mail from Friday where you told me not to worry about the projections, because you were taking them over." I responded asking if you needed support, and you never replied. Silence. The director raised an eyebrow. HR typed something fast. Claudia's face turned a shade I'd never seen on a human being before. Something between boiling red and chalk white. The meeting stumbled forward, but the damage was done. She'd been exposed, not fully, but enough for cracks to start showing. And I knew something important after that moment. She was panicking. People like Claudia don't panic gracefully. Over the next days, she micromanaged everyone, barked orders, forgot to include me in meetings, and even started throwing tasks at Brent that he had no business handling. Once, I walked into the kitchen and overheard her hissing at him. "If you don't figure this out, you'll make us both look bad." Brent looked exhausted, not because he was incompetent, he actually wasn't, but because Claudia used him as a shield, a puppet, and a footstool all at once. He cornered me later that day. "I think she's trying to make me quit," he whispered. I sighed. "She doesn't want you to quit. She wants to blame you." He rubbed his forehead. "Why is she like this?" "She's losing control," I said simply. "And people like her don't know how to handle that." Then came the mail, the one that would change everything. It was a forwarded message from her personal Gmail to her work account. Except she had accidentally mistyped her own name and sent it to the shared department inbox instead. I still don't know how she made that mistake. Maybe she was tired. Maybe karma was feeling spicy. But when I saw it pop up in the inbox, my stomach dropped. Subject line, draft version, do not send yet. I clicked it. Inside was a half-composed message to her accusing me of repeated insubordination, erratic behavior, and aggressive communication, along with a list of incidents that never happened. It was her plan. Her final move. She was going to try to get me fired, but she hadn't kept it on her personal device. She sent it to her work account, which meant it was now on the company server. Retrievable, traceable, permanent, and even better, she sent it to a shared inbox monitored by half the team. My hands actually shook, not with fear, not with anger, with something else. Opportunity. This wasn't sabotage anymore. This was lying to HR. A fireable offense, a legal issue, and for the first time, I realized I didn't have to destroy her. She had already done it. All I had to do was step aside and let the avalanche fall. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was scared, because I was planning. Not revenge, not payback, just the truth. The whole truth. Documented, organized, chronologically mapped. The next morning, I booked a private meeting with HR. And I walked in with everything. Emails, screenshots, timestamps, spreadsheets she falsified, instructions she contradicted, proof that she lied, proof that she tried to frame me, and yes, the accidental email. By the time I finished, the HR manager's face looked like she'd aged 10 years. Alex, she said slowly, this is substantial. Everything I said is true, I replied, and everything I brought is verifiable. She nodded. Well, launch a formal investigation immediately. Finally, it had begun. And for the first time in months, I felt free. The investigation didn't explode immediately. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that creeps under your skin, like the air before a storm. For the first week, nothing obvious changed. People kept typing at their desks, meetings happened. And Claudia still strutted around the office in her heels like she was untouchable. But the atmosphere was different. People watched her more closely. HR started appearing in hallways more often. Directors suddenly found reasons to stop by. And Claudia, she was slipping. Not all at once, but in tiny cracks that grew by the hour. She snapped at small mistakes. She paced around the office like she was walking on a sinking ship. She rewrote emails so many times I thought she'd burned through the keyboard. I even saw her in the kitchen one morning, gripping the counter with both hands like she was trying to stop herself from screaming. When she noticed me, she straightened so fast her ponytail whipped her in the face. Alex, she said tightly, a quick chat. Now. Her smile looked like it had been stretched onto her face with duct tape. She marched into her office and slammed the door behind me. She didn't sit down or offer me a seat. She just crossed her arms and glared, nostrils flaring. Are you trying to sabotage me? She hissed. I blinked. What? You know exactly what I mean. When I told her I genuinely didn't, she stared at me like she was trying to peel the truth out of my skull. The intimidation she used to rely on was gone, replaced by raw, cornered panic. You've been talking to our, she finally spit out. I shrugged. HR talks to everyone. She stepped closer, voice trembling now. They're asking questions. They're checking my emails. Alex, they're pulling records. The fear in her voice was so sharp I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. If HR is doing that, I said calmly, I'm sure they have their reasons. It was the safest answer on earth, but she heard it as an admission of guilt. Her face twisted into something ugly. You think you're smarter than me, she said. But you're not. You're nothing without this job. And I will. A knock on the door cut her off. I stood there. Claudia, we need to speak with you. Privately. I've never seen a person lose color so fast. She pointed a shaking finger at me. This isn't over, she whispered, and walked out like a convict heading to court. Over the next days, I spoke with almost everyone who had worked under her. And that's when I learned something important. A lot of people had been waiting for this moment. Turns out, Claudia had been quietly tormenting half the office for months. She made a junior accountant cry in the stairwell. She threatened a temp worker over unpaid overtime. She belittled interns for fun and stole credit from coworkers shamelessly. Once one person spoke up, the rest followed. When someone abuses power long enough, eventually the entire workplace starts praying for their downfall. Meanwhile, Brent, the guy she hired to replace me, was falling apart. One night, I stayed late to finish a report and found him staring hopelessly at his monitor. She makes me rewrite the same thing over and over, he said quietly. Then tells her I'm missing deadlines. He rubbed his eyes. I don't know why she picked me. I told him the truth. Because you're useful and replaceable. She targets people who won't push back. He swallowed hard, then said, tomorrow I'm talking to HR. And he did. That was the moment the entire investigation blew open. Brent had proof, messages, instructions, even voice memos where she blamed him for her own mistakes. He handed it all over. 2 days later, HR called me into a conference room with a compliance officer and an IT specialist. There was a thick file on the table. The compliance officer explained they'd gone through archived emails. What they found wasn't just unprofessional, it was illegal. There were messages where she instructed staff to alter financial reports, backdate approvals, and manipulate numbers to match her projections. There were emails where she tried to build a fake case to fire me, and the IT specialist confirmed they had all of it recovered. I sat there as they showed me the printed copy of the email. she accidentally sent to the shared inbox, the one accusing me of fabricated behavior. Can you verify this is the mail you saw? They asked. I nodded. Their faces were grim. This wasn't an internal conflict anymore. This was a compliance investigation, possibly a legal one. And Claudia had no idea how deep she was sinking. Over the next week, her behavior spiraled. She'd swing between manic positivity and explosive anger. One hour she'd bring pastries for everyone, the next she'd be screaming at the printer. Meetings were moved without her. Directors avoided her. People whispered behind her back openly now. She was a queen watching her kingdom crumble grain by grain. The breaking point came on a Thursday afternoon. She stormed up to my desk with a folder and slammed it down. This is incomplete, she snapped. I opened it. I had never even seen the report before. Claudia, this isn't mine, I said. Don't lie to me, she hissed. This kind of sloppiness has your fingerprints all over it. I didn't even get a chance to respond before a voice behind me said, Claudia, we need to speak with you. Immediately, it was the art director. She looked at him, then at me, and something inside her seemed to break. She followed R down the hall like someone walking to an execution. And the very next morning, everything finally exploded. The next morning, I arrived at the office to a silence so heavy it felt staged. No chatter, no keyboards. Even the espresso machine wasn't whining like usual. People stood in small clusters, whispering with the hushed excitement of kids who knew something big had finally happened. I didn't have to ask what was going on. I saw it on every face, relief mixed with disbelief. Something had finally snapped. I reached my desk, barely put my bag down, when an email notification popped up on my monitor. Mandatory all-staff meeting, 9:30 a.m., conference room A. That alone would have made my stomach drop. But underneath it was another message, marked confidential, from our Alex, please stop by hour before the meeting. Great. For a split second, a stupid primitive part of my brain wondered if I was the one in trouble, because that's what bullying at work does to you. It rewires you, makes you doubt even your own innocence. But when I walked into the HR wing, the truth hit immediately. Claudia was sitting in the hallway, not standing, not pacing, not fuming, sitting, shoulders collapsed inward, hands gripping her knees, eyes red like she had slept all night. She looked up when she heard me walk by. For the first time since I'd known her, she seemed less like a predator and more like someone who finally realized the cage door had closed behind them. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something, maybe to lash out, maybe to beg, maybe to threaten. But before a word came out, the art director stepped out of his office. Alex, right this way. I followed him in. He closed the door, sat, steepled his fingers. His expression was serious but less strained than before, like something heavy had finally been dealt with. Thank you for coming, he said. We wanted to update you before the all-staff meeting. He slid a folder across the desk toward me, a thick one. I didn't open it. After reviewing all evidence, he continued, we have concluded that Claudia engaged in repeated misconduct, policy violations, falsification of reports, and retaliatory behavior against multiple staff members, including you. I stayed silent. There was nothing to say. He went on. We also found several emails from her directing other employees to produce incorrect or altered financial information. Compliance flagged this as a serious breach. She has been terminated effective immediately. There it was, the sentence everyone had been waiting for. Not suspended, not demoted, not transferred. Terminated. A career-ending word. A life-altering word. And honestly a deserved one. We're notifying the staff shortly, he said. We wanted you to hear it from us first. And we owe you an apology, Alex. That part caught me off guard. HR doesn't apologize. Not unless someone screwed up badly. We missed signs that something was wrong months ago, he said quietly. Your manager used her authority to suppress complaints. That won't happen again. I nodded. I wasn't angry. I wasn't triumphant. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt lighter. As I stood to leave, the HR director added, and Alex, your performance reviews have been reinstated. The fabricated warning will be permanently removed from your file. You've actually been recommended for a role with more responsibility. I blinked. By who? Senior leadership, he said. We've been watching how you handled yourself throughout this situation. Calmly, professionally. You've earned their respect. I walked out of the office dazed. Claudia was gone. Her chair in the hallway sat empty. People kept glancing at one another as word spread. Some looked relieved. Some looked stunned. A few looked like they might cry. Toxic bosses leave deeper scars than most people realize. The staff meeting was short and clinical. HR announced her termination due to significant policy violations. They didn't go into detail, but everyone already knew. Afterward, the whole office felt like it exhaled for the first time in months. No one celebrated openly. No one cheered. But the atmosphere changed instantly, noticeably, dramatically. People joked again. People breathed again. People walked without tension in their shoulders. And I went back to my desk, opened a new project file, and tried to settle back into normal life, or whatever version of normal comes after surviving workplace psychological warfare. Around noon, Brent approached me. "Hey," he said quietly, holding a coffee. "I heard they fired her." "Yeah," I said. He let out a shaky breath. "Thank you for everything. I don't think they would have listened to just me." "You spoke up," I said. "You did the right thing." He gave a small smile. "You know, when she hired me, I thought I got lucky. Now I feel stupid." "You're not stupid," I said. "She manipulated people. That's what she was good at." He nodded and walked back to his desk, moving with a pace I had seen since he started. As the day wound down, I noticed something strange. Claudia's office door was open, completely empty. Bare desk, no decorations, no laptop, no chair. It was eerie, like she'd never been there at all. Only one thing remained, a small dent in the wall beside the doorframe. A place where, rumor had it, she once slammed her fist when an intern corrected her in a meeting. A faint ghost of who she'd been. And I realized something important in that moment. This wasn't just revenge. It wasn't about destroying her. It wasn't about proving her wrong. It was about restoring balance. About making the workplace safe again. About showing that no matter how much power someone thinks they have, they don't get to rewrite reality, crush people, or weaponize fear without consequences. She tried to bury me. She tried to rewrite my life, my reputation, my future. Instead, she buried herself. A few days later, leadership officially offered me a promotion, not to her position, but to a role I actually wanted, leading a small team with none of the political garbage attached. I accepted. Life moved on. The office healed. People laughed more. Productivity soared. For the first time in a long time, I enjoyed coming to work again. Sometimes, late in the afternoon, I walked by her old office and felt a small echo of everything that had happened, the fear, the frustration, the humiliation. But then I remembered the other side of the story. The courage it took for people to speak up, the way the office came together, the truth clawing its way to the surface despite every attempt she made to bury it. And I felt proud, not for getting revenge, but for surviving it, for staying human in a place that had tried to grind that humanity out of me, for walking through fire and coming out whole. And as far as Claudia, rumor had it she tried to sue the company, then tried to find another management job. But once the compliance findings showed up during background checks, doors started closing in her face. Companies didn't want the risk. One by one, her opportunities dried up. The last I heard, she moved states and took a position far below her old title. Some people said it was poetic. Some said it was sad. I think it was inevitable, because when someone builds their career on intimidation, manipulation, and lies, eventually they run out of places to hide, and sooner or later the truth catches up.